Hello, I'm Aisling, and I'm going to be talking about how some of the saints have shown valour and courage in working to share God's love with others. Now, living out this call to care for others and to show God's love and to work for justice has been at the centre of church teaching since the very beginning. In the Bible, we hear Jesus' teachings such as to love your neighbour, and ideas in the Beatitudes like, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, and blessed are the peacemakers. These teachings are still important in the church today and make the foundations of what we call Catholic social teaching, the teachings of the church about how we should live our lives and how we should live with others. Pope Francis' last encyclical, which is like a long letter to the church and was called Fratelli Tutti, or Brothers and Sisters All in English, talks about how important it is to care for one another, to work together, and to reject violence. We're so lucky to also have so many examples of saints and holy people who have overcome hardship and showed love to others, from St. Francis of Assisi to St. Josephine Bakhita. And today I'm going to talk about two saints. I'm going to talk about St. Oscar Romero and St. Teresa of Calcutta, or Mother Teresa. You might have already heard about them, and if you have, make a note of all the things you know about them and tick them off as I go along. Potentially you'll have even more things there than I'm going to be saying. So who was St. Oscar Romero? St. Oscar Romero was the Archbishop of San Salvador, which is the capital of El Salvador, a country in Central America. He was assassinated on the 24th of March 1980 while celebrating Mass because of how he showed God's love. Whilst he was Archbishop, there was a lot of social and political conflict, violence and repression in El Salvador. St. Oscar Romero used his voice to stand up for the poor. He supported the victims of violence, he called for justice, and he promoted peace. Many people, including people with power and influence, threatened him, but he knew he was called to work for justice, and it was this that eventually led to his assassination. He was made a saint in 2018. Now, St. Teresa of Calcutta was born in Albania, and aged 18, she went to Ireland to join the Sisters of Loreto and to become a nun. She then went to Calcutta in India and worked there for many years as a teacher. However, one day she was on a train journey and she felt the beginnings of a call to go and help the poorest of the poor. Eventually, she left her convent and she went to work with the poor and the ill in communities and neighbourhoods in Calcutta, looking after people, being with them, and caring for them. She founded the Missionaries of Charity, a religious order which now works caring for people all around the world. She even received the Nobel Peace Prize for her work in showing God's love to others. She was made a saint in 2016. Now, these are just two examples of people who have felt God's call to show God's love to others, and I've only talked about them really, really briefly. Do look up some more about them. They're excellent, inspirational saints. But potentially you can also think of other saints that could inspire us to show God's love. What is it that we maybe find inspiring about them? Now, a woman called Dorothy Day, who was a peace activist and the founder of the Catholic Worker Movement, or the co-founder of the Catholic Worker Movement, she cared for lots of homeless people in New York City, and once said that she didn't want to be called a saint because she didn't want to be dismissed that easily. Sometimes it's easy to feel that we can never live up to what the saints did, so we aren't called to work for social justice in that way, that they're special and that we're not. However, what Dorothy Day was saying is that actually she doesn't want people to think that we can't do that, because we can do that, and we are all called to do that. There are so many people we can see in our everyday lives living up to this calling, people that in the future we might even call saints. From people volunteering with food banks, and recently we've seen Marcus Rashford campaigning against food poverty, to those raising awareness of climate change and working to protect the environment, like with the school strikes. There are loads of great organisations also working for social justice, from CAFOD, the Jesuit Refugee Service, the Catholic Association of Racial Justice, Pax Christi, Caritas, the St Vincent de Paul Society, the Trussell Trust, Operation Noah, and so many, many more. I've probably forgotten loads, so apologies to those I haven't mentioned. But my challenge to you right now is to think about an issue that you see or hear about in your everyday life that actually you'd like to know more about, and maybe try and see if you can do something about it. You might want to pause the video for a couple of minutes just to jot down some ideas about the type of things that you might want to look into, or the things that you see that you feel you want to do something about. Do carry on thinking about this, and also think about seeing how you could get involved. You might want to visit an organisation's website, or you might want to do some research about local groups that are in your church or in your community. There are so many ways that you can get involved in working for social justice and showing God's love, whether it's through prayer, whether it's through campaigning, fundraising, or volunteering, when it's safe to do so. There are many ways that you can use your skills, your talents, and your passion to work for God and to show courage and to show valour in working for God's love. I encourage you to spend some time thinking about how you could be courageous and answer this call, whether it's with people locally or even with people across the globe. Thank you for listening, and hopefully I'll see you a bit later.